All right, let's talk about something we see every single day. Those massive trucks, the giants that keep Australia moving. But behind every single one of those heavy vehicles is this incredibly complex web of rules, all designed to keep us safe. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that system. I mean, there's no question, these highway giants are the absolute lifeblood of our economy. They're hauling everything, from the food on our tables to the fuel in our cars. But let's be real, their sheer size and weight mean they also carry a huge amount of risk on our roads. So that begs the question, right? What is the system of rules that's supposed to manage all that risk and keep our roads safe for everybody? And to really get a sense of the scale we're talking about, check out this number. In 2022, there were almost a million registered heavy vehicles in Australia. That is a ton of trucks to regulate. And this is why it all matters so much. In just 1 year, 2021, 163 people were killed in crashes that involved a heavy vehicle. The stakes for getting the safety rules right are just incredibly high. So, what's the answer? Well, it all comes down to this: the Heavy Vehicle National Law, or the HVNL for short. This is the main rulebook we're going to be digging into. You know, this law isn't just about handing out fines. It's really a balancing act. Its main goals are, of course, to promote public safety, but also to manage the impact these trucks have on our roads, and at the same time, help the transport industry run efficiently. And who's in charge of all this? That would be the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, or the NHVR. Think of them as the single national authority that makes sure these laws are followed across most of the country. Okay, this is where things get really interesting. We're about to get into the absolute core of how this law works. It's a concept called the chain of responsibility, and trust me, it completely changes how you think about who's accountable for safety. Think about it like this. If you see a truck driver speeding, or maybe they look totally exhausted, the law asks us to look past just the person behind the wheel and ask, who else might have played a part in creating that situation? And when I say the law looks wider, I mean really wide. Just look at this list. The chain of responsibility can include the employer, the operator, the person who scheduled that impossible trip, even the company that sent the goods, the person who packed the box, and the team that loaded it onto the truck. They're all potentially in the chain. So what this all means in legal terms comes down to something called the primary duty. It basically says that every single one of those people in the chain has a legal responsibility to do everything that is reasonably practicable to make sure their part of the job is done safely. And that right there is the real game changer. It's not about playing the blame game after something goes wrong. The law demands that everyone in the chain has to be proactive. They have to think ahead, spot the risks, and stop safety breaches before they can even happen. All right, so that's the big picture theory. But what does this actually look like in the real world, day to day? Let's check out a couple of super different examples to see it in action. So we're going to look at two ends of the spectrum here. On one end, you've got a seriously complex job, like towing a massive disabled B-double truck. That's all governed by a super detailed permit. On the other end, something you might think is simple but is just as regulated, using a forklift to tow something. Just look at the insane level of detail here. And this is only a tiny snapshot from a heavy towing permit. Notice how the legal length and the weight on the axles change completely depending on what kind of road you're on? Every single part of the job is spelled out to manage the risk. Okay, so we've seen the big, complicated stuff. Now, let's switch gears and look at something we've all seen in a warehouse or a hardware store: the humble forklift. It might look small, but the rules around it are just as serious. I mean, the clue is right there in the name, forklift. It's built to lift things up and put them down. That's it. Using some dodgy, unapproved attachment to try and turn it into a tow vehicle, like you see here, it's not just a bad idea. It's incredibly dangerous and absolutely forbidden. And hey, don't just take my word for it. It's literally written into the Australian standard. The quote is crystal clear. Trucks shall not be used for pulling, towing, etc., except with the prior approval of the manufacturer. Pretty black and white, huh? Okay, so we get it. There are rules, big ones, small ones. But what happens when someone in that chain drops the ball? What happens when the law bites back? Well, the penalties are broken down into three categories. And honestly, the numbers are staggering. A Category 3 breach, just creating a safety risk, can cost a company more than $500,000. If you step it up to Category 2, where someone is put at risk of death or serious injury, that jumps to over $1.7 million. And if they find you've been reckless, Category 1, a corporation could face a penalty of over $3.5 million. And these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. We are talking about serious, company-altering legal and financial consequences for failing to do the right thing when it comes to safety. And this might be the most important thing to understand about the whole system. These are risk-based offenses. This means an accident doesn't even have to happen. Just creating the risk, just failing in your duty to keep things safe, that's enough to be prosecuted. So, let's boil it all down. What are the big takeaways here? First, heavy vehicle safety is a team sport. It's a shared legal duty. Second, that team is huge. The chain of responsibility covers pretty much everyone involved. And third, the rules are no joke, and the penalties for breaking them are, well, you saw the number. So I'll leave you with this question. The next time you're on the highway and one of those big rigs rolls past, who will you think is responsible for its safety? Because now you know the answer is a whole lot bigger than just the person sitting in the driver's seat.